I'm Aky Karim. I'm here with Chaos Boxing in association with British Boxers, Boxing Exposure, and of course, sponsored by Anthony's Travel. Now, I'm joined by the one and only Mr. Sean Krool, expert strength and conditioning trainer, nutrition specialist. I mean, he's worked with some glittering names, from the likes of Hasim Rahman, Brian Rhodes, Alex Rutter, done a little bits and bobs with Krolla too. So he really knows his stuff. So thank you very much for letting me come down here to your gym today. First thing I want to ask, I know you've done a few bits and bobs with Krolla. What did you make of the fight with Linares at the weekend?
I thought it was really close up till a certain, up until the sixth round. We all seen what happened in the sixth round. It was disappointing a bit, but Anthony done himself very proud. Everyone, his whole team that was involved with him, very proud. Yeah. Linares is a class act. He's a three-weight world champion. Yeah. And I thought, what happened to Anthony in the past and his career, where everyone thought he was only a fighter, a British level fighter. He's proved himself, worthy of being in the ring with Linares. So definitely, I think that if a rematch comes up, a few tactical changes, and I think he'll definitely maybe be able to pull off the result, or be able to make it much, much closer than it was now.
Yeah. One thing I noticed as well, you're right, he did Manchester proud. He looked like he had more skeletal muscle, he looked like his stamina had improved. If you're looking and working with sort of fighters, what is a tip you could suggest to increase a fighter's stamina? Because that's a very important aspect of the fight game.
Yes, definitely. So, the fight, as everyone, the experts will always say, a fight is won and lost in the gym. Mm-hmm. So Anthony's improved himself with, I think his weight training, he's introduced a lot more weight training to it. But my take on improving guys, strength-wise, is I try with all my fighters and try and keep everything dynamic and try and keep everything functional. So I'm more of a guy like introducing stuff where you're doing with your own body weight, your TRXs, and as you can see in my gym, I've got a climbing frame, a rig setup, so the battling ropes and everything. So I try and keep it sport specific as close as you can to the fight game. It's good lifting weights and everything, but at a certain point, especially if you're looking at 12-round fights, the muscle will fatigue, because obviously the bigger you are, the more circulation, the blood needs to pump through those muscles. So eventually, it is going to be a hindrance the longer the fight carries on. Yeah. Explosive power is good, especially when you're using your more dynamic approach to improving your strength and conditioning. So yes, I try and keep it a little bit more functional, my training, and more dynamic.
Okay, great. I've actually got a killer question for you here as well. I've been asked specifically to ask you this. A lot of aspiring fighters have asked me to ask you, because they knew I was talking to you, about punch power. Are there any techniques a fighter can use to actually increase punch power specifically?
Yes, as I was saying before, using more functional pieces of equipment. Punch power, all depends like what you're doing. There's kettlebells, there's battling ropes, there's TRXs, Vipers. But kettlebells, I found that is very, very beneficial, because you're using that swinging motion all the time and turning motion. So you want to try and use everything that incorporates the whole body, the same as you would punch, where you're using your legs, driving through the hips and everything else. So that is very important, and using stuff like I'm a big positive that I would say in using the hips is something called a tornado ball. I'm really, really into using them. So again, like I say, everything where you use a lot of the whole body, the mechanism using from the legs up all the way through to the arms.
Okay, and a tornado ball. I've not heard of a tornado ball, so Google it right now. Find out what a tornado ball is. What about diet? Now, I've had the great honour and pleasure of doing an interview with Mr. Kerry Kays last week, and we touched on diet. Now, is there anything a fighter should what's the cardinal sin? What should a fighter be staying away from when it comes to nutrition? If you had one tip to give to somebody who's just setting out on boxing, what would you give it to them?
Stay away from processed food.
Processed food.
And sugar.
Okay.
That's our first. That's the first. I don't know. Kerry is a master. Yeah. He's a master nutritionist. I mean, he's been in the game a long time. He's worked with top athletes. I don't know what Kerry says about it, but I think we will be more or less on the same lines.
Yeah, yeah.
I think if we have a thing in Africa we say if you can't get it from the ground,
yeah,
and it doesn't have a face,
yeah,
then you can't eat it.
Okay.
You know, so like your animals, the people that are into it. I've moved away from eating meat. Right. I've been a vegetarian vegan going on 6 years now.
Yeah.
So I try and the benefits that I've got from it in all those years that I've left it, I try and give that over to the fighters.
Okay.
Like even with Anthony when he's in camp, because I do his nutrition, we try and keep him on all the grains and everything else, you know, like, again, everything that's on the ground.
Yeah.
Try and stay away from the meat. So that will be my main tip to fighters: processed food and sugar.
Okay, fantastic, thank you. Now we can see here you've got a fantastic setup. You know, it's the Fight Factory in Manchester.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about your setup here, and you know what you do for fighters that come down here, and sort of some of the sort of equipment you've got here and all that sort of stuff.
So what we're trying to do for fighters is incorporate the strength and conditioning program into the boxing, because I try and not divide the two, because we're working with fighters, so we've got to try, we're not working with footballers, although I've a few footballers have come down and I've helped a few footballers, but my main game that I'm in is in fighting. So you try and incorporate everything under one roof, so you don't need to go to a different trainer. Everything that I need, if as much as possible, so 80% of what I need is in the gym. They don't need to go anywhere else. So that is what I'm trying to achieve here by trying to keep everything in-house.
Yeah, and it really is a fantastic setup. So if you get a chance to get down here, you should really get down here. Just quickly sort of to close, I know you're about to do a pad session, which hopefully I'm going to record here as well. Are there any fighters you're working with at the minute you're excited about? Got any upcoming fights that we should be looking out for?
I've got one pro now that is fighting on the 22nd of October on the James Lindemann show at the Bowlers in Manchester. Mm-hmm. He's had one pro fight and he's been having his second now. He's called Mindels Boblers.
Okay.
Mindelgas is his full name. Mindels, everyone knows him as. I think he's a good prospect going forward. Very strong, welterweight. So he gets me excited because he wants to be in a fight. He's an Eastern European fighter. Okay. We're trying to build his fan base here with everyone we know in Manchester, so we can get everyone more involved with backing our gym and then obviously backing our fighters. And hopefully he can open up the door and other fighters can see what I'm doing with fighters and then come down, because I'm looking to establish a nice strong camp. Mm-hmm. And get especially local fighters. But I mean, if there's fighters I'm outside that I can give an opportunity to.
Yeah.
But financial support and obviously the other stuff we could talk about if fighters are really interested in coming down, because I'm looking to build a stronger camp for fighters willing to turn over, or professionals that are in the game already that think maybe, you know, the game's gone a bit stale and they're looking for someone to help them.
Okay, great. And one last question. This is a bit of a commercial boxing question, but I've got to ask you this. What is your favourite punch to work on? Your actual favourite punch?
It's usually I really like an uppercut. I usually like the uppercut. Yeah. Preferably from the backhand. But if you can get it through on the front hand, that's okay. And it's a close between the uppercut and the left hook.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you very much for spending some time with us. We're going to get some footage in a minute coming up with one of Sean's fighters. My name's Aky Karim. I'm here with Chaos Boxing in association with British Boxers, RealCombatMedia.com, Boxing Exposure and Anthony's Travel. And this is Mr. Sean Krool. Check him out at the Fight Factory in Manchester. Power.